Hi guys. Okay, this is Layla, and apparently she wants to help me read The Lightning Thief to you today. So hopefully she'll sit there and be good. Um, and my little neighbor boy is riding his dirt bike, as you can hear. So I don't think he got a muffler yet, but bless his little heart, he really needs one. So anyway, we're on Titan's Curse, chapter 6. An old friend comes to visit. Okay, the next morning after breakfast, I told Grover about my dream. We sat in the meadow watching the satyrs chase the wood nymphs through the snow. The nymphs had promised to kiss the satyrs if they got caught, but they hardly ever did. Usually the nymph would let the satyr get up a full head of steam, and then she'd turn into a snow-covered tree, and the poor satyr would slam into it head first and get a pile of snow dumped on him. When I told Grover my nightmare, he started twirling his finger in his shaggy leg fur. A cave ceiling collapsed on her, he asked. Yeah, what the heck does that mean? Grover shook his head. I don't know. But after what Zoe dreamed... Whoa! What do you mean? Zoe had a dream like that too? I don't know exactly. About 3 in the morning, she came to the big house and demanded to talk to Chiron. She looked really panicked. Wait, how do you know this? Grover blushed. I was sort of camped outside the Artemis cabin. What for? Just to be, near them. You're a stalker with hooves. I am not. Anyway, I followed her to the big house and hid in a bush and watched the whole thing. She got real upset when Argus wouldn't let her in. It was a kind of dangerous scene. I tried to imagine that. Argus was the head of security for the camp, a big blonde dude with eyes all over his body. He rarely showed himself unless something serious was going on. I wouldn't want to place bets on a fight between him and Zoe Nightshade. What did she say, I asked. Grover grimaced. Well, she starts talking really old-fashioned when she gets upset, so it's kind of hard to understand. It was something about Artemis being in trouble and needing the hunters. Then she called Argus a boil-brained lout. I think that's a bad thing. And then he called her... Whoa, wait. How could Artemis be in trouble? Well, Chiron came out in his pajamas and his horsetail and curlers and... See, I told you that young man needs a muffler, doesn't he? Finally Chiron came out in his pajamas and his horsetail and curlers and... He wears curlers in his tail? Grover covered his mouth. Sorry, I said, go on. Well, Zoe said she needed permission to leave camp immediately. Chiron refused. He reminded Zoe that the hunters were supposed to stay here until they received orders from Artemis. He said Grover gulped. She said, how are we supposed to get orders from Artemis if Artemis is lost? What do you mean lost? Like she needs directions? No, I think she meant gone, taken, kidnapped. Kidnapped? I tried to get my mind around that idea. How would you kidnap an immortal goddess? Is that even possible? Well, yeah, it happened to Persephone. But she was like the goddess of flowers. Grover looked offended. Springtime. Whatever. Artemis is a lot more powerful than that. Who could kidnap her and why? Grover shook his head miserably. I don't know. Kronos? He can't be that powerful already, can he? Well, the last time we'd seen Kronos, he'd been in tiny pieces. Well, we hadn't actually seen him. Thousands of years ago, after the big Titan god war, the gods had sliced him into bits with his own scythe and scattered his remains in Tartarus, which is like the gods' bottomless recycling bin for their enemies. 2 summers ago, Cronus had tricked us to the very edge of the pit and almost pulled us in. Then last summer, on board Luke's demon cruise ship, we'd seen a golden coffin, where Luke claimed he was summoning the Titan Lord out of the abyss. Bit by bit, every time someone new joined their cause, Cronus could influence people with dreams and trick them. But I didn't see how he could physically overcome Artemis if he was still like a pile of evil bark mulch. I don't know, Grover said. I think somebody would know if Cronus had reformed. The gods would be more nervous, but still it's weird. You having a nightmare the same night as Zoe, it's almost like they're connected, I said. Over in the frozen meadow, a satyr skidded on his hooves as he chased after a red-headed tree nymph. She giggled and held out her arms as he ran toward her. Pop! She turned into a Scotch pine, and he kissed the trunk at top speed. Ah, love, Grover said dreamily. I thought about Zoe's nightmare. Wish she'd had only a few hours after mine. I've got to talk to Zoe, I said. Before you do, Grover took something out of his coat pocket. It was a 3-fold display like a travel brochure. You remember what you said about how it was weird the hunters just happened to show up at Westover Hall? I think they might have been scouting us. Scouting us? What do you mean? He gave me a brochure. It was about the hunters of Artemis. The front read, a wise choice for your future. Inside were pictures of young maidens doing hunter stuff, chasing monsters, shooting bows. There were captions like, health benefits, immortality, and what it means for you, and a boy-free tomorrow. I found that in Annabeth's backpack, Grover said. I stared at him. I don't understand. Well, it seems to me maybe Annabeth was thinking about joining. I'd like to say I took the news well. The truth was, I wanted to strangle the hunters of Artemis, one eternal maiden at a time. The rest of the day I tried to keep busy, but I was worried sick about Annabeth. I went to javelin throwing class, but the Ares campers in charge chewed me out after I got distracted and threw the javelin at the target before he got out of the way. I apologized for the hole in his pants, but he still sent me packing. I visited the Pegasus stables, but Selena Beauregard from the Aphrodite cabin was having an argument with one of the hunters. I decided I'd better not get involved. After that, I sat in the empty chariot stands and sulked. Down at the archery fields, Chiron was conducting target practice. I knew he'd be the best person to talk to. Maybe he could give me some advice. But something held me back. I had a feeling that Chiron was trying to protect me, like he always did. He might not tell me everything he knew. I looked at the other direction. At the top of Half-Blood Hill, Mr. D and Argus were feeding the baby dragon that guarded the Golden Fleece. Then it occurred to me, no one would be in the big house. There was someone else. Something else I could ask for guidance. My blood was humming in my ears as I ran into the house and took the stairs. I'd only done this once before, and I still had nightmares about it. I opened the trapdoor and stepped into the attic. The room was dark and dusty and cluttered with junk, just like I remembered. There were shields with monster bites out of them, and swords bent into the shapes of daemon heads, and a bunch of taxidermy stuff, like a stuffed harpy and a bright orange python. Over by the window, sitting on a three-legged stool, was a shriveled-up mummy of an old lady in a tie-dyed hippie dress, the Oracle. I made myself walk toward her. I waited for the green mist to billow from the mummy's mouth like it had before, but nothing happened. "Hi," I said. "What's up?" I winced at how stupid that sounded. Not much could be up when you're dead and stuck in an attic. But I knew the spirit of the Oracle was in there somewhere. I could feel a cold presence in the room, like a coiled, sleeping snake. "I have a question," I said a little louder. "I need to know about Annabeth. How can I save her?" No answer. The sun slanted through the dirty attic windows, lighting the dusty motes dancing in the air. I waited longer. Then I got angry. I was being stonewalled by a corpse. "All right," I said. "Fine. I'll figure it out myself." I turned and bumped into a big table full of souvenirs. It seemed more cluttered than the last time I was here. Heroes stored all kinds of stuff in the attic. Quest trophies that they no longer wanted to keep in their cabins, or stuff that held painful memories. I knew Luke had stored a dragon claw somewhere up here, the one that had scarred his face. There were a broken sword hilt labeled, "This broke and Leroy got killed, 1999. Then I noticed a pink silk scarf with a label attached to it. I picked up the tag and tried to read it. "Scarf of the Goddess Aphrodite, recovered at Waterland, Denver, Colorado, by Annabeth Chase and Percy Jackson." I stared at the scarf. I'd totally forgotten about it. 2 years ago, Annabeth had ripped the scarf out of my hands and said something like, "Oh no, no love magic for you." I just assumed that she'd thrown it away, and yet here it was. She kept it all this time, and why had she stashed it in the attic? I turned to the mummy. She hadn't moved, but the shadow across her face made it look like she was smiling gruesomely. I dropped the scarf and tried not to run toward the exit. Excuse me. That night after dinner, I was seriously ready to beat the hunters at Capture the Flag. It was going to be a small game, only 13 hunters, including Bianca D'Angelo, and about the same number of campers. Zoe Nightshade looked pretty upset. She kept glancing resentfully at Chiron, like she couldn't believe he was making her do this. The other hunters didn't look too happy either. Unlike last night, they weren't laughing or joking around. They just huddled together in the dining pavilion, whispering nervously to each other as they strapped on their armor. Some of them even looked like they'd been crying. I guess Zoe had told them about her nightmare. On our team, we had Beckendorf and two other Hephaestus